Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. We're all still alive, still moshing to the apocalypse, and man, things are crazy. This is a Mercury retrograde, and I think there's something to it, but this one's like a guillotine. That's what it feels like.
There's definitely something going on. I mean, the politics is going wonky all of a sudden. It's not a good.
All of a sudden, it's been.
Well, it was going good for a little bit. Now things are starting to turn with the things happening in Iran right now.
Like a weird Twilight Zone episode meets the Manchurian Candidate meets They Live meet John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
It's really like I don't know what the hell is happening with it. It's scary. But anyway, you're listening to churchofmabusradio.com, 107.7 New Orleans. And man, it's been crazy. I have court Monday at 9 a.m.
Hey, Gabe! Gabe's in the room. Oh, yeah. You're not working tonight?
Gabe is my witness. Right. Gabe is a witness to what's been going on about the story I'm about to tell. Okay. He was fighting with I hate to tell this story because I don't like to talk about, people who are friends or whatever online and get into drama and gossip. But anyway, Andy and me wrote books together, Praise for the Hairy Man, The Secret Life of Bigfoot, Probes Happen. And it's just interviews from the show with like Stanton Friedman and Jim Mars and all these like UFO legends and stuff. And anyway, recently someone had told me, a co-host, that they were seeing Andy act kind of weird on his page. And I was like, well, Andy's always a little weird and out there. So, I mean, that's nothing new, but I noticed,
normal, yeah.
I noticed that it was heated up a little bit more than usual. And I was like, man, you seem wilder since the divorce. But anyway, he then said that my co-host worked for Epstein. His ex-wife works for Epstein. And Christina and my mother work for Epstein. And Christina is a serial killer, and he just got very paranoid, crazy. No one in my family knows Epstein at all.
Wow.
And he's gone off the deep end, and I hope he gets help. And I think there's truth to some things, like maybe his ex-wife, he knew a lot of celebrities. I mean, he does know a lot of celebrities. So there may be some slivers of truth, like maybe the ex had an Epstein connection. I don't know. I just know me, my mother. We don't know Epstein. I'm online begging for money to pay fees. If I knew the Epsteins, I think I'd have a little bit more money than me.
Yeah, and I think you'd be asked to go see the Congress about some questions they want for you too, if you were involved in that.
I'd probably be pro-Trump, and I'm not. We know that.
Has he seen anybody yet?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know, but we've been friends for a long time, and it was just out of left field. And basically,
with the divorce and all, it sounds kind of like either drug or alcohol induced paranoia delusions. I had the same thing. I won't say where my situation came from, but I had someone accusing me of the weirdest, conspiracy theories that I'm not even involved in. But it was all due to getting a hold of some street weed with fentanyl on it, or maybe he's developed a drinking problem after the divorce.
Here's where it gets really weird. He says him and his son worked at Zorro Ranch, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I work for it. It sounds like you work for XP. I don't know. It may just be rantings of a lunatic. There may be some truths there, but it's definitely been creepy as I'm freaked out about going to court Monday. That's going at the same time. So wow. He blocked me. But
if he keeps up, there are algorithms on Facebook. If he keeps up any of those kind of things, they will send notifications. Facebook will send notifications to him, and I guess people who might know and care about him that there's an issue, and try to get involved health-wise that way. But
really crazy. But basically, my mom and Christina and them orchestrated the whole thing that happened at the jail, and it's ties to Epstein, and just crazy. Like if you would have told me this 2 months ago that he would be saying weird stuff like this, I would never have thought it in a million years. Like it's just bizarrely weird. but things have been weird lately. But Stephen, when it comes to like paranoia, is that often an element of some of this criminality? Like when, for instance, I mean, I know you can get into so much with this delusions and personalities and the spiritual and demonic, but what are some of your thoughts about someone who may be acting overly paranoid to a point like we're discussing now?
It's possible that somebody who's having a psychotic break or hearing voices or having a paranoid episode might fall into a criminal situation. But usually, you know, like schizophrenics, people that are having mental illness, the majority of them are not criminal. You know, people kind of overrate that. They sort of overestimate the amount of criminality that goes with it. But it certainly does happen.
Yeah, definitely. And but it's definitely when it comes to your book, I've been reading it and I enjoy it a lot. And I'm someone that kind of said, okay, I'm not going to read these true crime things anymore after I read the Jeffrey Dahmer one. And I have the Ed Gein Depraved on my shelf, and I won't read it, but I keep wanting to, but I kind of just fight it. And then I just saw the Ed Gein series. That was enough just to make you not want to read it, probably. But
you should read Harold Schechter's book, though. Harold is one of the best out there. He is absolutely
that show. I know he denounced that show on some level, and I don't blame him. I thought that show was okay. I thought Charlie Hunnam did a great job, but it definitely seemed like it was over dramatic, over dramatizing a lot of stuff. But
that's one word for it. Some of it was just plain inaccurate, but you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Exactly.
They did the same thing with Dahmer. So
yeah. The Ryan Murphy stuff's kind of hard to watch. I'll watch it, but it's not like, you know, we did a whole show on Dexter, and I like Dexter more than I like Ryan Murphy for sure.
See, my problem is I teach class, and I have, you know, mostly 20-something students, you know, age-wise. And if I don't watch like the Netflix Dahmer documentary or the Netflix Gein thing, I'm not going to be able to answer the questions when they come in the following Wednesday night and say, "Did he really catch Ted Bundy?" You know, I mean, I really have to be prepared for some of these off-the-wall questions that they come up with. So I would probably rather not watch some of that stuff, but I do just to prepare for things.
We had when I was in college, I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design. And at the time, this was the 90s, we were the East Coast test facility for Sony's new video equipment. So all the students there, you know, how better to test your new equipment than give it to a bunch of, you know, drunk, stoned college students and see how it holds up against that kind of abuse. But anyway, during one of our graduation ceremonies, we had a gentleman, I don't remember the director's name, but he directed the first Dahmer film. And the stories that he told us that he did in his research for the movie, and how Dahmer actually did die at the end, it was kind of gruesome. I mean, and the signs are there for almost all of the serial killers, that they're parallel growing up. I mean, you know, everyone always says the same things about them. They're super smart, very nice and kind, never too busy to say hi, never too busy to stop and give, you know, a neighbor a hand here and there. And then, but the hidden stuff, the secret stuff, is where they're cruel to animals. They're, you know, maybe they're bullied at school and they take out their aggressions, you know, in the woods on a bunch of tadpoles. So it's deep, dark, human evil stuff.
A lot of them do share a certain lack of empathy, for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's with animals, whether it's with people, and they also have a history of a problem with the impulse control. That's where that McDonald triad comes in, with the fire setting and the animal abuse and the bedwetting. A lot of the things that you were just talking about, there are a lot of serial killers that do share some of those traits. But the thing is, there are quite a few that aren't. And the one thing that I like to point out when we talk about serial killers and their beginnings is, it's kind of amazing how unique so many of them are. There's a lot of them do have their own story that you really have to uncover. I think Dahmer's is particularly unique, and there's a lot of unique stories out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The very first documentary, the guy showed it to us before he premiered it, nationally. And it's very well done, and Dahmer does have a sad story. It's bizarre that in a society that we have these amazing technologies, particularly now, but I mean, even 30, 40 years ago, we weren't napping stones to make knives to cook and eat our food with.
Right.
We're fairly advanced people, and to have these children go through these experiences and become these monsters, it's a failure on society's part and mental health as well.
Yes and no. I think that's true in many cases, but I think there's a lot of cases with serial killers and violence in general where there's a certain biological basis to it as well. And I don't know that anybody can save them. There's a number of them that you can look at their history and you can look at, their background and say, the parents didn't drop the ball on this one. This kid was killing cats from the beginning. Yeah. I mean, right from the beginning. So like, again, it's hard to paint them with a broad brush sometimes.
Yeah, I guess that's possibly true. You've obviously been researching this and doing this longer than I have. There's a good recent story with a child molester in California who was going to get paroled on this new bill that Gavin Newsom put into place, where after if you've been in jail for more than 20 years and you're over 50, and you've been good behavior the whole time, you can be released early. Well, this guy's in jail for 3 life sentences for molesting and murdering 9 7-year-olds. So I don't think it's a good idea that we put this guy back into society. But
yeah, I don't think he has any place in our society.
Yeah, once caught, I mean, that's a good thing. But that's, you brought up a good question. And how are we able to? I mean, I think that for some of the ones, like I think Dahmer was a failure on education, his parents and family. He could have been saved, but by the time he started, it was too late. He had to catch it early. I guess, in his teens or early, pre-teens. How are they able to catch these guys if they're so invisible? I mean, like you said, there's more of them that are unique, that they don't follow a regular pattern. What do you do to catch them?
If you're talking about early intervention and you've got kids that are acting in a way that's exceptionally demonstrating a lack of empathy, and generally animals, and specifically pet animals, is something that is a red flag that people overlook. And I mentioned earlier that I've had some history doing animal abuse investigation after I retired, and I've talked to some of these parents that kind of saying, "Oh, boys will be boys, and they will do this and that." And I when I explained to them, I said, "No, your son is not just being a boy when he tortures and kills cats and that sort of thing. This is somebody who could be leaving a trail of bodies 5 years from now. It's something that could happen." So I think there are a lot of times when parents are exposed to that kind of behavior that should set off alarm bells right away. You shouldn't need to tell them twice. They need to take them in.
Yeah, it's not a normal thing to do that. I mean, maybe you find a snake in the backyard and you're an 8-year-old boy and you pummel it to death with a shovel until it stops, because you don't know. You're young and it's a snake. That would be normal.
That would be normal. Yeah.
But to do that to someone's pet or your own family's pet, that's absolutely, red flag should shoot up. Yeah.
And there's a normal progression there. There is a point in time where children are too young to understand empathy. I mean, sometimes they do a stupid thing with an animal or something like that because they're so young. But they reach a point where they go, "Oh, that was awful. I should never have done that." That's a normal progression for a human being. But some of these other people, they go into teens and they're enjoying it a little too much. And that's a different person altogether.
Yeah. It's
but I could talk about Dahmer all day, I think.
Yeah, I could too, but so you've been doing this in college level for how many years now?
I started teaching university courses in the late 90s, so 27 years or so. I was an adjunct part-timer when I was still a criminal investigator for a long time, and then after I retired, I started doing it more often, more classes.
So what do you do to depart yourself from this this mental thinking of teaching kids these horrible monsters every week? What do you do on your downtime to get that out of your head?
Oh, I was a hockey player as a kid, and that's kind of what was my main focus when I was in college, and so I continued with that. So I'm a little obsessed with sports to a point, so I can put things aside and look at something else.
So you must be excited that we brought home women's and men's team gold for hockey this year.
Yes, that was spectacular. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I didn't see the whole game. I'm not a hockey fan, but I did see the ending and the final goal, which was pretty cool. I was more interested in the curling this year, and the first year they did it, they would show the whole game, and the games are long. I mean, it's 10 rounds or whatever they call them, 10 innings. But they always showed them like halfway in, 4 and 5 innings in. I'm like, I want to see the whole thing. They felt kind of cheated.
They had some controversy there with the curling. They had some cheating allegations, and the two of them like barking at each other on camera. That was something I hadn't seen in curling before. I have to say that. Yeah,
the way that they stand around the scoring circle at the end of like the game, and then they start kicking things around. I don't understand how they're so quick to score it, and they start kicking things around. Are you cheating by doing that? I don't know. I agree with you totally, but the game is cool. It's slow, but I believe it's a little bit faster than golf, and it has a little bit more strategy than golf.
That's true. Everything's faster than golf.
Yes.
one thing I need to plug really quick. It'll take like 2 seconds. Check out Piggles. They make pig harnesses. Piggles.com. They made a pig harness for our pig.
You should get a picture of your pig in their harness and advertise it for them.
I don't have to do it. This is the second time I've advertised for them, so maybe sometime I'll do that, but not right this second. I can't. I'm not in that kind of mind frame. but great to be here tonight. Let's get to the subject matter. Here's something, Stephen, I've noticed. Like, we've been watching a lot of those paranormal videos and like forest encounters on YouTube with like Slapped Ham and Maximum Fear and Nuke, whatever. There's like a bunch of them on there, but lately they've been showing a lot of ones where like a couple is at a national park, or just friends are at a national park, and then some sicko like shows up and kills them. Like, these are true, real stories, and so they get. I'm like, what is it with some of these killers, man? It's like you can't even go to a national park and relax without worrying about some nut acting like Jason Voorhees. But there's just been a lot of killings like that where people have just been randomly selected to be killed at some kind of park. And this just sucks. It's just
it is, but really, I think look back and think about like the Zodiac killer and things like that. I mean, people have been doing that for a while. We hear about it a lot quicker these days, that's for sure. But people kill for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and they've been doing that for a long time.
It's crazy. But as far as and then I like to, what do you think about it? Like, I guess from a spiritual perspective, is it demonic or is it psychological? I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of places you could go with that for sure.
That's a great question because, obviously I spend an awful lot of time looking at psychopathology. And I one of my last books, I did some interviews with a woman that I personally knew as a friend who ended up committing a double murder. And she took an insanity plea. And so I spent a lot of time talking to her specifically about the nuts and bolts of what she went through and what it was like to be in a psychotic state and what happened before and after and all that. And that was all very fascinating. But that's the kind of behavior that we've always described many years ago as being demonic and being, spiritual. I since have become friends with, for lack of a better word, an exorcist. And we've spent a lot of time talking about such things, and he's kind of pushed me a little farther away from everything being mental illness, and everything automatically being some sort of psychopathology, and saying that, if you do believe in Christianity at any level, then you should probably be thinking about about possession and that it's possible. So I did do a chapter on exorcism and mental illness, how it sort of overlaps a little bit. I find it to be a fascinating topic.
Quick, just an anecdote. I won't tell the whole story. Jeff knows it. But you know the ending of the Exorcist, where the priest says, "Jump into me," and then when he gets the demon, he jumps out the window and goes down the stairs.
Right.
Well, first, interesting about that story. Number one, that house is 3 blocks away from that staircase. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hell of a leap. Really hell. I mean, it's 3 blocks over 4 or 5 different houses.
If you can spider walk down the stairs, you can do anything. That's okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, probably so. But number two, we were young kids. We were coming back from a museum tour, and I don't even remember what museum it was at this point. But all the kids on the bus, we were sitting at the light, and we were looking at the car barn, which is where next door to where those stairs are. That's where the cars for the street cars were for DC is now a museum. Anyway, we see this gentleman standing there in a coat, just launches himself down there really fast, and at the end stands up, and we're all screaming. Turns out that this is the guy who's the stuntman for the priest who does the stunt at the end. He was just testing to see if he could do it, and was talking to William Peter Blatty and the director at the bottom of the stairs once he bounced all, and God, it was scary as hell. But we witnessed him practicing the stunt for the end of the movie, which when I didn't see the movie, the whole first part of the movie scared the living hell out of me, not the ending. So I knew what I was looking at. I knew the guy was safe.
I could watch that movie 100 more times, I think.
I saw it when I was like 9 in the middle of a winter blizzard. My parents, brother and sister had gone out to dinner because I was sick. I didn't go. So I was like really bad, 13 years old. And it was on CBS. It was on broadcast television. And it still scared the living snot out of me. While I was watching it, my dad came up to the front door when we had the door open and just a glass window there. And I saw him, and I almost jumped to the ceiling. He scared the living crap out of me so bad.
Yeah. I remember seeing that movie as a kid in Boston. We went downtown and went to go see it. And we got in a line that went around the corner, down the block, and around the building to get into this movie. And there was a reason for it. That's for sure. It was amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad I missed the theater experience on that one. I was much later that I saw the actual uncut R-rated, and then later they did the director's NC-17 cut, which is even grosser. But the first one, just even the cut for TV one, was enough to scare the living piss out of anybody. I don't know. I don't care how strong you are.
Right. Yeah, the uncut at the movie was crazy, and there were people getting sick and running out of the theater. I mean, they really did do that. I mean,
it had a really bad reputation for that at the beginning of the movie. You're muted, Jeff. We can't hear you.
That happens. I love I've seen all the movies and enjoy them, but I'd like to read the books sometime, and I wouldn't mind rewatching the movies. And then I want to see the Brad Dourif. What was that? The second or third one? The third one with Brad Dourif. I want to see that again.
Yeah, those were underrated. I went back and watched them this past year, the 2 and 3, but I didn't remember quite as well because you get so caught up in the first one, and it's worth seeing them again. They really are.
And watch all those Omen movies too to get around some old ones.
Omen movies are fantastic.
They were fantastic.
But I do like the later Exorcist movies. They're not quite as gory.
There's a prequel,
but they do. I think they follow more of the storylines in the book than they do the original stories.
Right.
Which Hollywood is notorious for doing that. I mean, they don't always, do the book justice when they adapt it to movies. And then a lot of times stuff is skipped, and other things. If there's a lot of things that they have to get said that there's too much of, they can combine them into one character, or take several characters and combine them into one, and it dumbs down the story and ruins and changes the plot, in my opinion.
No, I read Jaws over again this year because of the anniversary, and
one of my favorite examples.
Yeah, and talk about doing a different version on screen, and they really did it better. Actually,
I agree. It's my one example that I use where Hollywood actually took the book and made it a little bit better. I mean, imagine watching that movie, sitting there for 2 hours, being scared to death,
right?
Seeing all these body parts floating around and blood spurting out of the ocean, and then finally you see the shark, and it almost gives you a heart attack. And in fact, one of the stuntmen on set actually had a heart attack because the thing scared him to death so much while he was doing the stunt.
Sure.
And then on top of that, at the end of the movie, the shark just goes to the bottom of the ocean with the boat and drowns. What a horrible ending.
Oh, what an awful ending. I read that ending again and thought, are you joking? I mean, what are you talking about? Plus, they had the mafia going on in that thing. And it was like, oh, we need to fix this. And they did a good job with it.
Oh, it's like I say, the one example of Hollywood changed ending. I mean, to put that scuba tank in the shark's face and then smile, you son of a bitch. Boom. That's fantastic. And then it's another excuse to throw in a deeply horrible, bloody, gory scene.
Right. Absolutely.
Jay loves Jaws, so you got him.
It is the number
Talks
one
about Jaws every show
movie of all time. It has to be.
I like it. I like Jaws.
No one considers it a horror movie. It is actually one of the best horror movies because you don't see the monster bad man serial killer until the last 15 seconds.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it's Hitchcock at sea, basically. I mean, when that guy's leg
100%.
kind of wanders into the view of that one scene, you just didn't expect that kind of realism, and it felt like you were there.
Absolutely,
I loved it.
Now we have Terrifier 1, 2, and 3, which I enjoy those movies, and I know the guy that plays the Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton. He's on my Facebook. I know him, but I like them. But the violence in those movies is just too much. Like, it is a lot. That's a lot to watch those. So I don't watch them over and over or anything, but I will go one time, maybe two, but probably not more than that. You never know. Maybe a third 10 years from now or something. but
sometimes when the gore is over the top, it's meant to be hilarious. For example,
this is just real. It's too real. It's almost too real. It's too
what's the
real.
movie? Oh yeah, Reanimator. Do you remember Reanimator?
Mm-hmm.
It's a horribly funny movie, and it's extremely. It's graphic, but it's like, campy, funny. Graphic.
Sometimes they become a caricature.
I think that was 100% meant to be, a satirical, like almost, an NC-17 vaudeville thing. My friend and I, we snuck some beers. I snuck some beers. He snuck some wine coolers into the theater, and we're sitting there drinking and watching this movie, and we are literally giggling and laughing our full heads off. And these two pretty girls were sitting in front of us. One of them turns around and goes, "Why are you guys laughing at this?" And I said, and I was tearing, laughing so hard. And I looked her straight in the face and said, "Because it's fucking hilarious." And just turned around. I mean, we couldn't hold ourselves straight. It was that funny.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting to me is how some of these killers will toy with the police. Like, you got the Zodiac killer, sending letters and messing with them. That's a lot of balls. That's a lot of I could imagine me in that situation. Day one, I'd probably just stroke out from that, just the stress of it alone. But I'm just kind of, who are some of the killers that have done things like that? And I want to hear a little bit about that, if you could.
But really, so many serial killers, their biggest personality trait is an over need for control. And when they connect themselves to media or with the police or the newspapers or whatever it is and start toying with them, I mean, they get to show how much smarter they are than you are and everybody else. And it's really a natural step for them. And then you had, the Berkowitz and even the DC snipers and Jack the Ripper. And there are so many times. And BTK is an excellent example of doing it to the point of getting himself caught. So, sometimes they do a little too much.
Did Gacy mess with the police any?
Gacy was different because Gacy, right from the beginning, knew he was under severe surveillance, and he just didn't run away from them. He started being their buddy. I mean, after a while, he started talking to him. He had him come in the house at one point and told him he's going to, make dinner for him and give him a beer or whatnot. I mean, but that was Gacy's personality. That's how he kind of controlled people. And he absolutely showed them that he wasn't afraid of them, and then just kind of ran around town and made them chase him. So that was his way of toying with police.
But also the same token, he also felt justified with what he was doing, didn't he?
Justified in the kills?
Yeah, like he would what I think that in his eye, he didn't feel like he was committing a crime.
Well, I mean, he liked to blame them and call them hustlers and say they were garbage and saying they all deserved it and all of that sort of thing. But, you know, he went through a lot of different stages too. I mean, this is somebody, a lot of people think that he was killing himself, that he was looking at, kids that were gay or hustlers or whatnot and was acting like his own father treated him. I mean, he was pretty multifaceted in his psychology.
And then he kept all the bodies just in his house, right? Or his crawl space and weird places just in his house. You just living there like they're all around like a mausoleum.
Yeah, he had 26 of them under the floorboards there in the crawl space.
Man.
How long does it take for the smell of a decaying body to go away? It's months.
That's an interesting point that you would bring up, because there's people on both sides of the argument saying that there really wasn't a smell going on there, that the police shouldn't have been able to get a warrant and all that. And then there's others. I mean, and one individual I can think of who's a funeral person who said they were absolutely smelling, and everybody should have been able to smell it through the floorboards pretty easily. But it's something that should have been easily detected. That's close to the surface, that's for sure. I mean, they had those vents go on, the air conditioning came on, the heater, whatnot, and it kind of went through the house.
Yeah, I would think unless you did something to, I mean, even the coroners, not the coroner, the guys who prepare bodies at the funeral homes, even after preparations, they still there's a smell, and that's why they have back in ancient times, what did they use to hide those smells? Frankincense.
Well, he used lye as an attempt to cover that up a little bit.
Yeah, you'd have to use something, because otherwise he's nailed and caught the first time he invites the cops into his house.
Absolutely, yep.
And what's the roundabout number of how many serial killers they say are active, like at one moment in time? Like I know there's a number.
You'd be surprised. It's in the thousands.
Well, it's drastically different at different points in time. I mean, if you look at the period that we call the golden age of serial murder, from the 70s through the 90s, there were quite a few going on. The hundreds. These days, there's quite a few less. I mean, serial murder has gone down dramatically since that point in time, and it's just sort of a different era of serial murder.
Well, what's the percentage? What's the percentage of how many have we caught versus how many are not?
Well, I think part of the fact that we haven't caught them makes that number impossible to really nail down.
That's probably going to be the scarier number if we're able to determine how many, unsolved serial murders are still out there by other individuals. I think there's been some algorithm type programs put together based on unsolved murders geographically. It's called the Homicide Project, and they've actually picked off different serial killers that were operating in different geographic areas just by looking at that kind of an algorithm as far as unsolved murders. But I don't think it's a ton now, but it was pretty bad for a while. Well, I would hope that there's not that many, but I would think they have statistics for people who report rape, that there's many more who do not. I'm thinking the same kind of algorithm works with the serial killers. There's so many that we've caught, and so many more that either have stopped or are just so elusive that they haven't been caught or never will be caught.
Yeah, but the problem is you're starting to look at people like Joe Giannangelo, the Golden State guy, and Samuel Little, people that were caught due to either confessing late in life or being caught on some of these DNA profiles that they didn't have back then. That some of those guys are actually being caught in their 70s, and you're finding long histories of serial murder. I don't know that we're going to keep doing that. I think a lot of those guys have either died or been caught. I think right now, at this point in time, at this date, we're not going to get a whole lot more like that.
Yeah, it's one of them data points that you want to know, but it's going to be near impossible to get it.
Right. You have to, what you end up having to do is you have to look at unsolved murders and you have to back into them. Yeah, and the problem is you can have one individual who is responsible for 50 kills, or if you're in an area, you could be of like a high victim facilitation. You could have a lot of murders or a lot of deaths that are drug murders, crime murders, things that people that aren't missed end up being victims, and they could have been serial killer victims, or they could have just been somebody who lived a life of crime or lived in a bad neighborhood. So really tough to get statistic with some of those.
Yeah, and you just gave me a good kind of a segue there. We got this new AI stuff coming around. I wonder what would happen if we applied AI to some of those unsolved murders. Would it be able to detect patterns and certain areas where there might be serial killers and such like that? That would be cool.
I mean, the break between the period of what we called the golden age of serial murder and today was probably when DNA became common. And so that kind of scientific or law enforcement type technique is going to be what changes things, and it's what changed those crimes as well.
Yeah, and on top of that, on top of any kind of splatter DNA that might be captured, there's also digital DNA that can happen now, or what they call your digital footprint or whatever, which is what they're trying to do with the Nancy Guthrie case. But I think they've been barking up the wrong tree from the beginning. But that's just me.
Yeah, I had a serial killer that I interviewed for my first book. We talked a lot about serial killer motivations and how they thought and whatnot. And he told me, he said, we're at a point now that the long-term kidnappings are the kind of crimes that are replacing serial murder, because serial murder it's been more easily detectable than it was in the past. But a lot of some of these people that are being snatched off the street, put in a prison and in a basement and kept for 20 years, we don't know about those, and we rarely find them, So he was telling me that, and he was talking about people he knew, that some people are more successful with that, and that's sort of a crime of the future.
Yeah, we talk about that on other shows on the network, that in the alien abduction phenomenon, it's been going on since the first reports are in the 60s and 50s, but the fact is it's a phenomenon that's been going on for forever. I just lost my train of thought. Good God.
Alien stole it. No.
Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can catch my thought again. Yeah, I've lost it. It had a good point to follow up with what you were saying there.
It happens.
Yeah, I'm in my 60s. It just the brain starts to falter or whatever you call it.
I know that Mindhunter series was really good by the David Fincher, was it? And I have the book. I need to actually read the book, but I love those. I wish they'd bring it back, but I don't think they're going to do it. But the interviewing with a serial killer, I know.
I remember my point actually now. Okay, so your point about the people that go missing, we don't know about, whether they're kidnapped and held away. Over a year in the United States, 1 million people disappear.
Right.
Whether it's aliens or whatever, 1 million people disappear and they don't ever come back. And that's just the United States. And think about that globally, that number is a lot larger, I would think. So, that number could be a good reason why there's, a lot of active, well-hidden serial killers or kidnappers that, like you say, grab people, hold them for 20, 30 years and for whatever purposes. And there's a lot of stories already of the few who have escaped those kind of situations. But yeah, I have a feeling that it's they're probably of the same mentality as the killers. They just are smart enough not to kill them until
it depends what they need out of them. Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to kill somebody, then that's what they're going to do. But if somebody wants to own somebody, it's different altogether. And if you own somebody for a longer period of time, well, that's a lot easier crime to stick with, really. So
yeah, and like I said, the new mentality for serial killers is to kidnap and house them for 10, 20, 30 years. And you think about that, if you first grab somebody and they go missing, there's a huge dragnet. People are going to be looking for that person forever, especially like example to the recent Nancy Guthrie case, where there's evidence of violence being, taken from the home. They're going to be looking for a long time. 20 years from now, they're not looking for you or that girl anymore. That's when you take your action and kill them and dispose of the body, and then you get your next victim. That seems a little long term, and like I don't know if that satisfies their need to do what they do, but it makes it a lot harder to get them.
I think that's an important point, though, that you just brought up, because most serial killers don't play the long game, and they're not really don't have that kind of patience. I mean, they're serial because they like doing it over and over again. And I don't think they're going to wait a decade in between them. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
No. So, but again, there's so many serial killers that have their own little spin. We think that we've heard it all, and then something else happens. So.
How many of them have actually networked together while they were active?
Well, I mean, there's been a number of serial killer teams out there. I mean, I think Bittaker and Norris are probably one of the most famous couple serial killer teams. You've had, actual female serial killer teams and male, female out there. So there's been plenty of serial killer teams that work together. Generally, when you have teams, you have a leader and a follower.
Right.
The Bittaker Norris thing was probably the most extreme version of two people that wanted to rape and kill people and managed to get together at the meeting in prison and being as effective as they were. I think they were two of the worst killers that ever lived. But those are individuals that generally feed off each other psychologically and commit worse crimes or more crimes than they ever would have done by themselves.
Because of the competitive base, I can do better than you, or that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, and they a lot of times they will have what they call a shared psychosis, where they actually will share that psychosis, and they do feed off each other.
Are most serial killers Virgos? I'm a Capricorn, and I think there's some Capricorn killers, but none of them spring to mind. But are most of them Virgos, or do you ever look at their astrological sign?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. You beat me on that one. I don't know. Now you're going to make me look it up. Thanks for that.
I've seen it. You can look into it, but I've seen a lot of memes like on Facebook where it'll have lists of serial killers and it'll say they're all Virgos. And I'm like, it'll just be like a bunch of like famous ones and they're Virgos apparently.
Yeah.
But it's something to look into. I don't know how true it is, but I know. I think I always say the Russian doll maker killer was a Capricorn, but I don't know if that's true. There was that Russian guy that like made women into dolls or something.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that one, but I'll absolutely look at that.
I like fiction serial killers better, like Hannibal Lecter, which that's a rough one, but I've enjoyed all the Thomas Harris books. And when I start getting into the real stuff, I kind of edge away and like, give me back Stephen King or whatever. Give me back fiction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the fact that they're real is what catches my attention. When I was a little kid, I used to be obsessed with monster movies, in the 60s. Yeah. And my mom used to let me go to bed early and then wake up at midnight and watch, all the old horror movies. And the thing is, as much as I enjoyed them, they didn't scare me at all. I just found it as entertainment. But growing up in Massachusetts and in Boston, all of a sudden, Albert DeSalvo showed up, and he was entering women's homes and murdering them there. And this was something we never heard about before. And, and all of a sudden I saw my mother, my parents afraid. They were afraid of somebody that was out there. And that was scary. That's the thing that caught my attention. That's why I follow them to this day, because they're real life monsters. That's why I use that as the title of one of my books, because that's something that's entirely different than what you see in the screen.
See, that's why Dexter's interesting, and if you haven't seen those, I'd definitely check them out at some point in your lifetime. They're really good. Basically, there's a police officer, and he teaches a code because he knows his son carries a dark passenger, which is a killer. So he's basically training his son to kill evil serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows about him killing evil serial killers, but it kind of blurs the lines and he makes mistakes and things, but it gets really good. John Lithgow's a serial killer in it, which is just creepiest thing ever. Like it's just there's some creepy scenes with John Lithgow that will
He's a
haunt
great
you.
actor, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they reboot. There's so much you have to go to one of those sites to make sure you're watching everything in the order because they've done so much with Dexter. But they actually just did Dexter Resurrection with Peter Dinklage, and it was really good. It surprised me, but you got to like kind of look at a site to keep up with everything in the order and everything.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, they're good. But at least he's introducing the concept to people, kill the evil serial killer.
Right, right. You're going to have a moralistic serial killer. Why not?
Yeah.
Oh, really, Hannibal Lecter tried to act that way, but he was
Yeah, I was
inconsistent.
surprised that Hannibal was based on like a gay Mexican cannibal dude that ate his lover, like just one dude. That I was surprised to see that. It was in one of those Thomas Harris books. I've
Right.
read all the Thomas Harris books, but Silence of the Lambs for some reason. I have Silence of the Lambs, but I need to read it. But I enjoy them. But yeah, he's haunting, but he's really based on that. I guess the guy that ate his lover. That's like the root of it. And
I
then
have
they
to say,
all
I'm pretty hard on film altogether. I mean, I just pick them apart all the time, so that's why I don't watch a lot of them. And I have to say, Silence of the Lambs, pretty good. I mean, they really got a lot. I mean, a lot of the things that go on, especially Hannibal, are composite. But they're composite of actual serial killers in the most part, for the most part, and a lot of what they talk about is accurate, really. And really, you started to bring up earlier, you were talking about Mindhunter, and you talked about the development of the BAU and the interviews and all that. And they did overlap into that sort of thing that was going on, which I found to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And Mindhunter's good. I hope they bring it back. I know the second season was Wayne Williams, and I grew up in Georgia and all that during all that time when my mom was actually telling stories where she was afraid to let me go outside because of Wayne Williams, all that weirdness that was happening that in my time period. I forget what year, but it's creepy how they can impact whole communities like that.
They can. Yeah.
It's just insane. But I think there's a spiritual element to it all. I was raised Christian, and we've done a lot of shows on shamanism and Norse and stuff on here, so I'm open to a lot of different things. But I think I'm someone that had an experience where I saw beings of light leave my house and I was completely sober. And I've seen stuff when I've not been completely sober, but I guess they were either deceased loved ones or angels. So I think there's a dark and a light side. I don't try to figure it out too much or push it on anyone, but I think there's spirit, not to say every killer is influenced by a demon or the devil, but I think there is some stuff like that that's certainly possible. I know that Russ Dysdar guy, and he passed away during COVID and all that, had this book called Black Awakening that was about serial killers, like satanic serial killer cells awakening, like super soldiers. And he was pretty big in a lot of, might be a little kooky, but there's a lot of weird ways to go with it for sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Russ Dysdar, he has a book called Black Awakening about that. And I just have seen it where I work a lot before it's news and stuff. But what's some things about your book that you want to tell us about? What's a particular? I know you have Ted Bundy. Man, he's just ferocious. Anything I've ever seen with him, he was just like Michael Myers or some shit. Just like horrible.
Ted Bundy. Speaking of that last book, that last book, it talks about insanity and as used by serial murder, and most specifically the Bundy, the Gacy, and the Dahmer cases. And it was interesting to kind of look at the psychological angles of all three of them. And Bundy was the one who absolutely took it personally that he was not going to have an insanity defense. I mean, he found that to be insulting. He said, I mean, he made it absolutely clear that he would not go along with being called insane, that he knew exactly what he was doing, but he thought he was smarter than everybody else and he could talk himself out of that problem, which is what he ended up talking himself in the electric chair. But Bundy actually, after all of that, after ignoring the insanity defense and telling all of his handlers and all the psychiatrists and all the people that were trying to keep him alive that he wasn't going to go with that, he finally lost those cases, went through the appeal process, and towards the very end, one of the things that he tried as an appeal was competency. And his entire argument was they should never have let me not take an insanity defense. They should never have let me defend myself. And he tried to use that as proof that he was actually incompetent all that time. And his problem was he was such a good talker. He did such a great job in selling himself as an attorney at that point in time that there was no chance that that was going to ever pass. So it didn't work.
And so he was one of the guys that defended himself. How many others defended themselves?
Very few to the level that Ted Bundy did. I mean, at one point in time, I met with Vic Africano's son, Vic Africano was one of Ted Bundy's last attorneys. Went down to Florida and talked to him, and we discussed a lot of what went on with that case. And I managed to get a letter that he wrote to Vic while his appeals were going on. And there was always a point in time where, you read about Ted Bundy and you see the movies and it's all sort of, almost comical sometimes. And you go, how smart was this guy? How legit was this guy as an attorney? I mean, he did go to law school in Utah. I mean, they didn't make that up. But I got a chance to look at this letter, and he analyzed the precedent of the use of hypnosis and other things where this guy really did do his legal research. He wasn't a dummy, and he wasn't just full of it. He was a legitimate legal mind. And this was somebody who could have been an attorney if he actually bothered to stop killing people for 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, he was the real deal as far as being an attorney.
How close was he to winning?
Winning?
Yeah, I mean, did he get close to? I mean, it seemed like he knew what he was doing.
He didn't. He did. His problem was he couldn't put aside the game playing, because part of it was that typical psychopathic behavior where he had to play with them. He had to, show them that he was smarter than they were. He had to, enjoy the cat and mouse game and all that. And it distracted him from the point at hand. He might have had a better shot at it, but the problem is between the public outcry and everything that was going on, he wasn't going to win that case one way or the other. And the way he handled it, he had no chance, really.
Did he have a chance if a proper, like a lawyer that was better than him could do it? Or was he hung from the beginning? Because I think
his problem was that he absolutely dismissed out of hand that he would not accept an insanity defense. If he actually got himself a solid attorney and he bought into the insanity defense and he said, I did have delusions, I did have these problems that made irresistible impulses that made me not be able to control myself, I think he could have got an acquittal. I think he could have pulled that off. I mean, that was one of those cases, you still have to deal with jury problems and politics and people's minds, because there's a lot of jurors that you can make that case 100 times and they're just not going to find you innocent. They're afraid that you're going to go out and kill their son. They're afraid they're going to go out and rape their daughter and leave their head out in the field somewhere. So they don't really care what your argument is. And I did talk about that a lot in the insanity defense book that I wrote. So those two things do fight with each other. But in his particular case, he could possibly have made an argument for insanity. He could have.
He was certainly, I understand, arrogant as hell. At least it sounds like it.
Arrogant, yeah, to a point of talking himself into an electric chair. I mean, he actually did do that.
Yeah, that's one hell of a way to go. Have your eyeballs exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people just feel like they wish he could have gone through that a few more times.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they got to hit you twice.
Yeah.
What does insanity get you if you win the insanity plea? Does that just get you the mental asylum, which probably sucks too?
Yeah, you get a rubber room.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's look at Hinckley. I mean, Hinckley is one of the most famous, successful, quote unquote, insanity defenses. The guy just got out a few years ago. Okay, so you could say that you could win, quote unquote, an insanity defense, but you could spend a lot longer in the system than you would have otherwise. That can happen. But like when we talked about Dahmer, they didn't have a death penalty in Wisconsin, but in Dahmer's case, him going into general population was a de facto death sentence. And that's all there was to that. And he knew that. And his attorney, I mean, she told me that they discussed this. And when he decided to go into a general population, she said, Jeff, you won't last 6 months. And he said to her, I hope not. That's kind of what he was going for, was sort of a death sentence. But if he had been successful with his insanity defense, they would have put him in a mental facility or whatever it is, and it might have sucked. It might have been a terrible place. It wasn't very good in the 90s, but he wouldn't have gotten beaten to death with a metal bar, I'll tell you that. And that was the difference.
And with Dahmer, he didn't really have anything bad happen to him in childhood, did he? There was not really anything there, was there?
No, his history is complicated. So people like to focus on one thing with Jeffrey Dahmer, but he had a lot of things going on. And one thing that people miss a lot of the times is that his mother was on 20 plus medications when she was pregnant with him. And the effect on him mentally is underestimated. Okay, this is the kind of thing that does affect people's behavior later on. Then he said he had his connection with necrophilia and his sexual interest in dead people and that sort of stuff. He had a lot of things going on, and his particular situation with the parents, with the terrible breakup and all that seemed to hit him particularly hard. They say that whole feeling of abandonment carried on to the way he treated a lot of his victims. That's yet another one. He's a multifaceted person as far as his beginnings.
A lot of pathologies going on there.
Right, for sure.
Did he really go around faking seizures and stuff? Because I remember seeing that in the movie, and I think I may have seen it in an interview. But was that part of it, him faking seizures?
Seizures? That's something Gacy did.
And they showed Dahmer doing that in the movie and stuff. And I don't know if it was true or not, but they showed him one of the particular movies that was kind of like a new. It wasn't from too long ago, but that was one of the things that he would do in it. And they may have just throw that in there. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but it showed him faking a seizure.
I mean, he could have faked something, but that's something that you usually associate with Gacy, because he did have some issues with that when he was younger, and he realized that if he faked seizures, he got out of a lot of problems. It worked for him in prison, worked for him in real life. So that's kind of something that they talk with Gacy about.
And is it really Ed Gein where all this influence comes from? That's one thing that was in the series that was good. Besides, it was dumb in some parts, the one we were talking about earlier, but I like the way that it kind of flashed back through. Like it went to Alfred Hitchcock, and then it went to Tobe Hooper. It went to time periods. That was cool. But I mean, I know they seemed like they made him overly. I don't know if Ed Gein was ever gay, but it seemed like they wanted to make it seem more like he was. There's a lot of weird stuff in it, but the end of it. But I know with a lot of this stuff, they try to make him the poster boy that influenced all the different, like the Norman Bates is pretty much Ed Gein, except they prettied him up. And then, of course, you have the Tobe Hooper movies with the crazy family that, and then I always
talk about Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
You're
1,000 Corpses, that the old oak and the crazy family up in the house.
It's true that Ed Gein did directly influence the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs. What was the other one? Oh, and Psycho. And he absolutely did influence those. I don't know about anything else. There was a lot of things that they said that he influenced in that movie, like Richard Speck and other killers. That was absolutely ridiculous. That was just awful.
Yeah, that was crazy for sure. It was too much. You're like, I got to watch 10 episodes of this. So I'll do it, I guess, but
it was
I won't be watching it again. That's for sure. But yeah, I really love that Hannibal show that Brian Fuller did. I think that's who did it. Yeah. The one with Mads Mikkelsen and all that.
Yeah.
Like, it was amazing. Like 5-star reviews, but because there wasn't enough viewers, they canned it. Like, I love that show. It was so great.
It was
and the
a
way
really
they
well done
ended it,
show. Yeah.
ended on that cliffhanger, man, that was like a slap in the face. It's hard to get committed to any show these days. They cancel things so fast.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
Like
You know,
Resident
it
Evil.
was NBC, and they're notorious for doing that. They did it to Star Trek, and they did it to Hannibal, and it was just like, you idiots. I mean, a show with that kind of Hannibal's film quality. I mean, it was good enough for movie theaters. That's how well they were filming those episodes, and it just can it because of like a couple of weeks of bad ratings. That was dumb. If they let that go, they would have. I'm guaranteed the storyline was just starting to pick up.
Well, I mean, you look back at shows like Seinfeld, even. I mean, that show bombed for the first week or two, and they said, oh, we're going to cancel this, and they decided not to. And all of a sudden, it's there for, I don't know, 15 years or whatever it was. I mean, and you would think they would learn that, maybe give something a little rope, but they're still impatient, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know the guy that did Hannibal. He was going to be doing Crystal Lake, and he gets fired off of everything. He was going to do the new Anne Rice universe on AMC. I think it's Brian Fuller, but everything he does, he gets fired off of. But he makes really good things. But for some reason,
he does get his ass fired a lot. He got fired off of Fantastic Four. He got fired off of Superman. He got fired off.
I don't know if that's the same guy, but I know there's.
Why does he get fired?
Creative differences. But he did Hannibal, and it may come back as Silence of the Lambs at some point. But man, that Silence of the Lambs movie, I've been listening to that Goodbye Horses song over and over, and friends have sent me different variations of it. That is a crazy powerful
a nice bottle of Chianti.
Yeah. It's a good song, though. It really is.
I have that on my phone. I listen to it all the time. It's just a fantastic song.
Her voice. Was that the only song she had that was popular? I'm sure she had more than that. I think she's passed now, but yeah, it's a really great song. I've always seen on the Clerks movies. That's but I've seen everything. But yeah, I got to know your mind and everything and what you do. The main reason we do this show is because of paranormal. When I was 17, I had testicular cancer and went through chemo and all that stuff. And a few years later, my dad died, and I started to have a lot of strange encounters, like seeing beings of light and UFO type stuff. And it led me to interview people like Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist, Jim Mars, who wrote the book that inspired Oliver Stone to do the JFK movie. Like I've been doing it for like 20 years, and sometimes I'm surprised I interviewed these people. Sure. But I'm just kind of curious when it comes to the serial killer thing. I think there is something demonic, but I don't want to go too kooky with it. Like, I also think there's something to energy weapons and things. And we've had Robert Duncan on, that was a CIA whistleblower that made some kind of tech they used to hurt people and whistleblowed. Yeah, he passed away recently. But there's just so many different levels to this stuff. But I'm just kind of curious, is the paranormal something that comes up with you? And the UFO subject is a big thing with us. And we discussed the congressional hearings and how the Pentagon releases the Tic Tac videos. The next minute they say there's no alien life while they're releasing that, and the congressional hearings. Like, there's just an irony to it all.
Right.
On so many levels. But I'm someone who's had UFO things happen with witnesses, seeing craft. And with witnesses, my mother, my brother, my nephew. It's been a little while. Sometimes I'll see something, but back in the day it was a lot more. And it could have been military. I don't know what it was. It was weird though. But that's a subject I'm just curious. Does your mind topple with?
To be honest, I mean, I know a lot of people that have a foot in both of those worlds. But I have not seen that really overlap with serial murder in my experience. I mean, they just seem to be different topics, to be perfectly honest. As far as serial murder, the psychopathology of it and the history, as far as the behaviors and all that has been one thing. But as far as paranormal and all that, not really. I've had people contact me and say that They wanted to go to Herb Baumeister's farm because they're going to have a investigation there, and then and a couple of other places where Gacy supposedly had a presence and whatnot. And so I do know people that do that sort of thing and have brought me in that a little bit just for being an advisor and that sort of thing, but not a real legitimate overlap, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I know there are some killers that try to blame the devil or some kind of demonic force, but it's kind of rare. But there's a few famous ones that have done that, haven't they? That just kind of came forward with it and said, I know there's Son of Sam and things like that,
Yeah, Son of Sam, he was such a faker, and he just lied about the dog. But, he figured, I'll try it. Why not? But like Richard Ramirez was a famous Satanist. He absolutely. And the thing about Richard Ramirez, if you look at his case, he had a number of close calls early in his life. When he was a kid, he worked in a hotel or whatever it was, and he tried to rape a woman who was alone in a hotel room. And apparently her new husband came back and almost beat him to death, but they didn't want to come back for the trial, so they let it go. And, this is somebody, if he had gone to jail for 30 years, he wouldn't have been killing all of these people all this time. But there were a few other cases when Richard Ramirez should have been caught, and he just got stupid lucky. He actually had a certain belief that Satan was looking out for him. He thought that this is what it is, that my connection to Satan is why I'm able to be consistent, and I'm going to go with that. He had a ton of other reasons why he was a serial killer. That was just one of them. But, as far as Satanism and all that, those are the ones that kind of come up. Occasionally you get serial killers that they're not exactly sure what they're going to blame it on once they get to trial, and they go, Satan sounds good. They kind of throw that in, but I don't find them to be as legitimate as somebody like Richard Ramirez.
Yeah, it's usually just an excuse, but
right.
But definitely, you said you have a friendship with an exorcist that's affected you on different levels, and I think there's a light and dark side and good and evil, but you got to be very careful. Like, a lot of people want to blame the devil for every freaking thing that's ever, every fart that happens,
Yeah.
And but I'm kind of curious. What are some things that? So do you believe there's spiritual warfare since talking to this exorcist?
I do. He's changed me on that point. There's been a couple of things about spiritualism in the last couple of years that I've sort of changed my mind on. One of which was Dahmer's conversion to Christianity, which was a very specific, different example of something that I changed my mind on after looking at that. And spending time with this exorcist, he doesn't overplay the entire existence of it. And he does say it's extremely rare and it's not the kind of thing that happens very often. But he tells me about some of the exorcisms that he's gone on and some of the things that have happened, books being on fire and different things that happen in front of him. And I believe him. His testimony is believable to me. And he's kind of added another layer, another possibility to all of the different reasons I've managed to find for people to kill, and this is yet another one.
There's definitely some high strangeness with that. I mean, the demonic possession theory, idea, whatever you want to call it, it's in almost every religious text as well. I mean, it's documented over the centuries, so it's not just a modern pathology that's just all of a sudden happened to us because we invented the internet. No, it's been going on
thousands of years. Yeah.
Probably even prehistory, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And it's just simple. If you have so many people that call themselves Christians who say they believe in God and everything in the Bible, how do you not believe in exorcism? How do you not believe in possession? It's part of it. It's another chapter of it. So I don't think you can be a cafeteria person on it with it,
One of the things that strikes me the oddest about the Catholics in particular, I grew up in the Catholic Christian church. I don't believe it. I haven't believed in God or religion since I was about 6, but it's another show. But I've never really felt that religion did any good on the planet. I think it's done a lot of bad things, for one thing. But again, I lost my goddamn train of thought. What did you say just a moment before that, Steve?
As far as buying into possession as being a reason for some murders.
Oh, right. So the idea of demonic possession, there's actual. I think there's some actual scientific research that can prove something going on there. There's I don't remember the boy's story, but there's the one boy, and I don't think it's the same boy that inspired the Exorcist story, the boy in Maryland, but this one possession, the child was like 6 or 7 and began speaking, and they didn't know what language it was. Come to find out, it was either ancient Sumerian or it was ancient the language that Jesus would have spoken, a language that isn't taught in any modern day school. And it took them months they had to actually get someone who was like a historic linguist who would actually like kind of revive the language so he knew what it would sound like. And as soon as the child's demonic, voice or whatever recording they had of it, he said, that's what that is. How does that happen? So there's something there. There's some kind of connection that somehow something gets into the mind. How is that possible? Is it a galactic universal internet and the boy's brain just downloaded some information and he went wacko with it? Or did an actual entity enter the child's brain and or soul or body vessel and take over control? We don't know.
Well, I mean, compare that to like people that have had brain injuries and all of a sudden they can play an instrument or they can speak another language.
On some instrument,
right. There's absolutely no legitimate reason that should happen. I mean, you can't explain that to me logically, but it happens, and there's been evidence of it. So that sounds like the kind of thing you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so hard to think because there's so few of them that come out there. But you've made my brain spark a little. So there's the guy that gets hit in the head, and then all of a sudden he can play the piano or the Stradivarius. There's the one person who struck on the head, and like I said, with the cuneiform or whatever that kid was speaking, one guy who was not only spoke one language, he was now fluent in another language. In fact, he was so fluent in the other language after his accident, he had to learn English. So something snapped, and his brain went to completely fluent Spanish and no English.
Sure.
So people that are 5 and 6 years old remembering World War II.
See, it's really absolutely.
You're 5 years old. You haven't even gone to school yet.
It's amazing how little we know about the brain. I mean, it's as advanced as we are, I mean, we're absolutely still primitive when it comes to brain analysis. It's kind of
go out in the universe and puddle jump or go to the moon and the Mars and then do this and go outside the solar system. We don't even know everything about our planet. We don't know everything about our brain. I think we should stick around the local neighborhood first and get to know everything that's on our planet first. And then once we figured out everything on the planet, hey, there's no more to look around on here. Let's go to another planet and find out what they've got.
One thing at a time. Absolutely.
Exactly. Walk before you can run.
And with all the, I saw earlier about this little boy that went missing, and I forget his name. I was trying to find it on Facebook, but I've seen him on some of those videos on YouTube about missing people. But apparently there's a connection to him with the Epstein files where he's mentioned in it. And it's a little boy that had glasses on. I had kind of I can't remember his name. I have it on Facebook somewhere, but there's a lot of stuff coming up with that. That's just such an insane level that I can't even wrap my head around it. But
I think if you're a child and you survived an encounter with Epstein or any of his cronies, you count yourself lucky.
Yeah.
If he's even still alive, like he's still missing. So they say he was trafficked or something like that. But there's just so many levels of that to where that goes on, and ringleaders of it that they think, Epstein was definitely one of the ringleaders. That it seems to lead to a lot of other crazy places that it's just so much to even wrap your head around. Like, and the atrocity.
We haven't even seen the beginnings of all the stuff that's going to happen from those files yet.
Yeah, and then the disgustingness of it, so many different things in it. But as far as some of these killers, do all of them usually have sex with the victim, or do some of them is that not an element at all? Like, I mean,
there is one thing I alluded to this earlier, just don't use the word all, because it absolutely doesn't include everybody. I mean, there are individuals that the sex is everything, it's the entire point, whether it happens to be sadistic sex or whatnot. Some hate women to a point that they want to destroy them to the smallest molecule, and some of them profess to love women so much they can't control themselves and they have to attack them in that manner. Other people with the same thing with men and different races and different reasons that they commit crimes or violent expressions to them. So I mean, and there's a number of serial killers that have absolutely no sexual connection whatsoever. I mean, there was a time in the 70s and 80s where we kind of thought the lust killer or the sex killer was the essence of the serial killer. I think that's the most obvious because that's the serial nature of them. That's the repetitive rape, torture, murder type of killer. That's the classic serial killer. But there's just a number of people that like to kill somebody. And the actual, I mean, some of them might get a sexual charge out of it, and some of them just want to do that. So I have to keep coming back to saying there are exceptions to every single rule. And whenever you think you're all done finding out why people kill people, there's another one that you have a serial bomber in Texas, I think it was a few years ago. He ended up killing himself. We never found out why. And sometimes you just never find out why they were killing people. So it's just kind of bizarre that way.
Yeah, I was going to add that, there's an extreme difference between the one who wants to murder and the rapist. The serial rapist, it's a different pathology. It's more on control and terrorizing the women because of their pathology. With the serial killers, like you said, they have a wide range of reasons why they do it. But I think most of the rapists are pretty much of the same mindset, but they don't want to kill. They're not killers always.
That's true as far as the killing part. Rapists in general, there's a certain level of typologies for rapists. They have different type of aggressive patterns and why they kill, and some of them are like very passive and just want to commit a rape and pretend that person was actually involved in it, that they wanted to, and another level up that they wanted to actually extend a certain amount of control and whatnot and aggression. Ones that are even worse have a certain amount of hatred towards women, and even worse than some of the most extreme sadistic types. And at the very end of the spectrum, you do have some that kill. But it is true that when you're talking about serial rapists, it's not uncommon for an offender to kill them, to do anything other than getting rid of the victim. And it's while they still end up being a serial killer, they're not killing because they particularly love killing individuals. They're just getting rid of them. One example that I have is, I told you about the serial killer that I interviewed for one of my books. And he tried to convince me that he wasn't a psychopath, and we got over that after a while. But he finally, he was explaining to me, he goes, listen, this is what it's like. If you steal cars, when you're done, you get rid of the car. And that's how he explained to me why he killed women. He raped women. He got everything he wanted out of them. He expressed himself through his pathology and his treatment of them. And then when it was over, the point was he went to prison at one point because a witness testified against him. And he was not going to do that again. That's all there was to it. And he killed every one of them after that. And his point was, I killed them because they were inconvenient. I couldn't have them out there. So he was actually trying to sell himself to me as not a real serial killer because I'm not really into killing people. My point was, you know what, man, if you kill 10 people, you kill because you want to. So that's kind of what we said.
Yeah, you didn't want to get caught. What do? You kill 10 people. I'm not a serial killer. Well, guess what? Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So it's interesting to hear them justify stuff, though. It makes sense to them.
It's the arrogance again coming back up.
Some of the stories he told me goes, it makes sense to me.
And what do they think is going to happen to them in the afterlife? They're just going to be like, oh, that's okay. Pass on through, buddy. No problem. There's consequences. There's got to be some kind of consequences for just whacking people.
That's an interesting point, because I mentioned Dahmer and spirituality. He had an opinion about the fact that there was no God. Okay, and his father was very religious, and religion was important in his family. But Jeffrey Dahmer, when he was committing his crimes, supposedly he believed that there just is no God. So if there isn't any God, I shouldn't have to adjust my behavior to satisfy a God that doesn't exist. After he went to prison, he supposedly had a change of heart on that. He actually put some of his behavior on religion, or the lack thereof.
That Jeffrey name, Epstein, man, you bastard. We already had Jeffrey. We already had Jeffrey Dahmer, and you had to be the freakazoid. Now we got you to change my name.
Yeah, you're saddled with that.
I'm going to change it to Joffrey, like with a G and an E O F F.
I have a godson named Jeffrey, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's like you said. Not all serial killers are Virgos, nor are they all called Jeff.
Yeah, that's right. Good point. Ted Bundy says hi.
Yeah.
Man, things are so crazy right now with everything. Just too much to keep up with. Man. But as far as what are some things in your book that maybe you'd like to mention that you don't normally get to talk about, or that you'd like to bring up some points?
The book that you're talking about, Irresistible Impulses, is the last one that I just did. It came out last year. I'm really kind of proud of this book, because it's amazing how people don't understand the insanity defense at all. They really don't understand, the precepts of it. They understand what crazy means, but they don't know how it relates to prison and to the legal system, and what insanity really is. And I always found serial killers to be, the perfect individual to use the insanity defense. I mean, the crazier the crimes, the worse the behavior, the more crazy you must be, right? And just sort of the things that go on throughout the course of a lot of these cases with jury behavior, and they'll tell you later on that some of these discussions, like explaining what irresistible impulse really is, that somebody cannot control their behavior, that they know the difference between right and wrong, but they might hear voices, or they might have some other compulsion that makes them have to kill somebody, and they might buy it. They might believe that once they hear the testimony and some of the experts. But at the end of the day, when they go to the court, they go to the jury room, they vote guilty, because they're just not going to allow that person to get by. And when you mentioned Mindhunter, you're talking about John Douglas. And I talked to John Douglas about this. He actually, on the back cover of that book, he did a little blurb for me, which I'm very proud of. And his point was that there are people that just simply, jurors don't like the insanity defense. They don't care whether it makes sense to them or not. They don't want these people to get back out and commit this crime all over again. And that's something that will always come into play when it comes to the insanity defense.
I know Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer in Mindhunter, the actor did a phenomenal job, but I've seen a documentary about that. It's crazy. But what's crazy is how he's like still, I don't know if he's still doing it, but making money off audiobooks. I don't know how much money, but I've never listened to one. But that's is there a lot of them get little jobs like that I'm surprised they let them do that?
Well, I think you're alluding to the Son of Sam laws, basically. The son, David Berkowitz, in the 70s, he signed a big contract to tell his story and make money for being a serial killer. And people in New York took spectacular offense to that, as they should. That insults the sensibilities of everybody. And the idea was they brought in Son of Sam laws, and they said that an individual cannot profit from their crimes. Unfortunately, Son of Sam laws don't hold up in court. The Constitution doesn't allow it, and they always fail a constitutional challenge. So the idea is attorneys have to understand when you're dealing with serial killers, you don't worry about Son of Sam laws. You need to put in the court system a judgment that puts any money that this person ever makes for any reason to be given to the victims. And that just handles all of it that way. That's the way you deal with a serial killer and them getting side jobs and benefiting by being killers and being famous. You just send that money to the remaining family members.
Do any of these killers go to like a level that's kind of like a Joker type level where they do big phenomenal like grand scenes? And I mean, a lot of it can lead to that, to where they shoot themselves or get shot down. But I'm just kind of curious, what are some of the more extravagant ones?
Well, the thing is with serial killers is for them to be successful, they need to be not silly in public. I mean, they need to be not caught. So being extravagant and being a Joker type individual is in direct conflict with being a successful serial killer. I think the extravagant killer is more often the mass murderer. You know, somebody that shoots up a school or a building, or blows up a building, or makes a point, or sends a tape to the news or whatnot, and goes out. These are people that are essentially committing suicide in a loud manner, you know. But serial killers, if they're going to be successful, you know, you're going to be a Chikatilo. You're going to be somebody who kills 50 people and gets away with it over and over and over again by being quiet, and that's how they're effective.
Definitely. And
the old saying, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The more noise you make, the faster the cops are going to find you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I brought up BTK before, and the problem with some serial killers is they do like the attention, and they, you know, like BTK and Kenny Bianchi and some of the other ones complained when they weren't in the paper enough. You know, but Berkowitz did that as well. And BTK was somebody who got away with it. They weren't going to catch him. And he just got so antsy about not being in the paper anymore. He contacted the papers and got himself arrested. And that's what happens to the serial killer that opens his mouth.
Crazy. We had this guy on from a band, Johnny Zoltar and the Robots, that was telling us about Kurt Cobain. And he said that he was talking to the FBI about, they knew who killed Kurt Cobain, something to do with Alan Ranch, and some weird guy that I've looked him up on YouTube. He's dressed up like Satan. It looks really weird. But anyway, he said that he asked the FBI if he could talk about him on the show, and they said no. So that particular show, we couldn't talk about it. But he said in some other shows he's rambled about it before, but this particular show he couldn't. But one thing that he did say was some stuff is about to come out about Kurt Cobain. And then a few days later, or maybe a week later, it came out like a tidal wave. I was like, well, I guess he was on to something right there.
Yeah.
I think they're reopening the case to go look into it being a murder versus a suicide. Wow. I mean, because even in the original autopsy report from the coroner, he even said it was murder by suicide murder. He mentions it in the original autopsy. So
interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, they say that they gave him heroin and OD'd him. It was like 3 times the strength in his body, and they gave it to him, and he possibly OD'd, and then they shot him, but he was dead supposedly. But
the rumor is they gave him a shot which was 3 to 10 times the amount of heroin that would kill a normal addict. And then once he was incapacitated, they laid him on his couch, put his shotgun in his hand, and pulled the trigger.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's one that hit me hard in junior high. That was a rough one.
It was a shock. Yeah. I was in high school, but I remember it.
It was horrible. And I have a weird story with it. I'll tell quickly. When I was going through chemo, I was going to shoot myself. I had testicular cancer, lost one, and I heard lithium, and I didn't pull the trigger. It felt like some kind of force stopped me from doing it. Wow. And then I wrote a letter to Nirvana telling them, and then he shot himself. So I was like, well, there's my line.
Huh.
But I heard the "I'll eat your cancer when you turn black," and I thought he read my letter, but they probably never read it. But that's just it just sucks that someone took him. I mean, if he was alive right now, I mean, man, it'd be like having Jim Morrison or something. Just that level of power, we need that, and some asshole took it being a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was that big that back then too. I mean, you saw that
He was
coming.
very popular.
Yeah.
Even if
Powerful.
even if you didn't like his music, he was all over the radio.
Yep. Yeah.
Another one I hated was Lane Staley with Alice in Chains. He OD'd or whatever, but that sucked. There's a lot of all the good ones croak on something, like usually heroin or Scott Weiland, Stone Temple Pilots, and all that. So Stephen, what are you working on next, book wise? What are you thinking about? The same subject, or are you exploring other things?
I'm trying to force myself kicking and screaming to another category, but unfortunately, psychology and serial killers is sort of an obsession with me, and I can't seem to get past it. I might look at a couple of cases that are just sort of under the radar a little bit and try to come up with something like that. I have a few things on the fire, but I haven't nailed it down yet. I spent a lot of time on that last one. I was running around the country interviewing interesting people. Dahmer's attorney and one of Dahmer's expert witness psychiatrists, and also John Wayne Gacy's psychiatrist. And those were exhausting jobs. I mean, they really were, to try to talk to them about what was going on and speak to them on their level. And it was a fantastic project. And now, if I go on to something else, I feel like I have to do that again. I have to kind of get on that level again. So I'm still thinking. I'm still working on it.
Who is a killer that maybe you've mentioned in the book or maybe not, that's kind of haunted you the most over the years looking into this stuff? There's a lot, isn't there?
There are a lot. I feel like there's such significant offenders. You would feel like that so many of them should be a once in a lifetime type killer. I mean, just looking at Gacy, how the different layers of his life and how that went, and then you can move on to like a Dahmer or even a Bundy. I mean, you shouldn't have a world that has had all three of these people exist. I mean, but they did. And the thing is, if you look deep enough in some of these cases, there's killers that are comparable to all of them that you've never even heard of before. I mean, that have killed like amazing amounts of people in horrible fashion. So I don't know. It's hard to pull one out, to be perfectly honest with you. I move on to another one, and they never cease to amaze me, the ability to be inhuman to their fellow people.
It doesn't seem to be a never-ending supply either.
Right.
I got a question for you, and this is one that me and Jeff have handled or talked about over the years. We had a guest on some years ago about the guy in England, Jack the Ripper. And the theory we were talking about was that it was, what's that doctor's name? He was in Chicago.
No, it was not H.H. Holmes.
No, you don't think it was H.H. Holmes, really?
Absolutely not. No.
Wow. Okay, so Jeff and I were kind of convinced that it seems to line up with H.H. Holmes. Who do you think is the Jack the Ripper?
Ripper was his name was. I'm getting the name wrong. It sounds like Kaczynski, but that was the one person that the FBI and also Scotland Yard has landed on. I went out to England and went on a Jack the Ripper walk, and actually talked to somebody who was putting on a Jack the Ripper walk, and they told me about the Black Museum at Scotland Yard, and they had all the Jack the Ripper stuff there, and I was lucky. The Polish guy.
Dave's afraid you're going to say the Polish guy.
I didn't say the Polish guy. That's not the way I put it. I went there and was able to visit Scotland Yard's Black Museum and look at all of their stuff. And I spoke to the people there, and the people at Scotland Yard absolutely positively said it was the Polish guy and weren't. And this was years ago. They were not even arguing with it at that point in time. H.H. Holmes, it just doesn't line up for me. It never did. And
yeah, I find the Holmes connection fascinating, but I never knew. I wasn't there, so I don't know who killed who. But I've had Jeff Mudgett on, who is related to Herman Munster Webster. Jeff Mudgett, I've interviewed him. I have a book of his signed that he gave me when we first started doing this. But it's interesting, and Holmes is freaking creepy as hell.
He is creepy as hell. He's a great story.
He haunts me. That's one that will haunt.
The one thing I liked about the whole Jack the Ripper story before we had all of this is that it comes up in Star Trek, and he's like they put in Star Trek, Jack the Ripper is actually like as we talked about earlier with the possessions, it's a supernatural entity, whether it's gaseous form or energy form, whatever. They never really explore that part of the creature, but they track it from Earth through the galaxy to this place they're at, where the Jack the Ripper entity kills these female victims in front of Montgomery Scott. He actually possesses Montgomery Scott to do the murders, and so I thought that was an interesting twist, that Jack the Ripper is an immortal energy being that is somehow from Earth or came from other planets, landed on Earth, killed for a while, then went on to the next planet, and then the next one, and the next one, and just followed humanity out into the stars. That's a great story, but high fiction, though.
Yeah, definitely high fiction. No doubt that.
Yeah. They were definitely smoking something when they wrote that story back in Gene's offices. That's Gene Roddenberry, by the way.
I mean, Holmes's story is such another unique serial killer. I mean, this isn't somebody who just went out and raped people or something, or wanted to kill women. I mean,
he built an elaborate dungeon for them.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was a fraudster, and he the things that he did, building the murder castle and all the different things that he was involved in. I mean, talk about an absolutely fascinating story. That sounds like it's fiction. It really does, but it's an amazing story.
Yeah, you can't make that stuff up. That's the scary part.
You cannot make up H.H. Holmes.
Sad to hear that Scorsese Devil in the White City situation fell through, or something weird with all that. They were supposed to be doing that series, but it fell through.
Yeah.
I don't think it's happening, but Keanu Reeves was involved in all this stuff. But
I had a good friend who's I should say, I have a good friend, John Borowski, who is a producer and has done a number of productions on serial killer stories. He did a film on H.H. Holmes. And he was on that, was it investigation discovery story that was on a few years ago that made that whole Jack the Ripper and H.H. Holmes claim.
That's right. And we had those guys on.
And they interviewed him because he had done that film, and he told me, he goes, I just hate doing this, because he didn't believe it at all either. And he just and he felt like they just kind of dragged out those episodes, and at the end they went, I guess it wasn't. It's basically how it turned out for them. So
yeah. And there was the only thing they showed was someone named Holmes was on a flight log or something.
Yeah, it was weak. There's no connection there, So just
definitely creepy to think about.
It is a weak and circumstantial, but I mean the timelines, they're very, very close. So Holmes disappears for 9 days, and he goes to London. And we don't know what he does in London. And so I don't know if he's prosecuted. How many murders did the Jack Ripper commit, and was it longer than 9 days? I think he was active more than 9 days. So.
Yeah, but look at the murders, though. These are not the same two killers. This is not somebody. That's not the way H.H. Holmes killed people. That wasn't his method. They just don't line up as far as the way he did things.
Yeah, and he was killing people to get money.
What about the possibility that they met, Jack the Ripper and Holmes met to
I'm not
share notes, if you will.
Those two are not connected.
What's the movie with Malcolm McDowell and is it Peter Cushing, where there's a Jack the Ripper time traveler movie, Time After Time?
Yeah.
Is that
that's a fantastic movie.
Is that Peter Cushing? I can't
No,
remember.
it's Malcolm McDowell, the guy
Malcolm
from
McDowell,
Clockwork Orange. Yeah, Malcolm McDowell, and
I've seen it.
Tron,
Michael
the guy who
Pesci was
he played
yeah,
Sark in
Pesci was
Tron.
older than that, I think.
Is it
Who's
Michael
the
Caine? I mix up so many.
not Michael Caine? No, the guy who played Sark. Oh God damn it! Pardon my French.
I don't know. It's a good movie though, but I know
Yeah.
Malcolm McDowell's Jack the Ripper in it. But I have to look up who the other person is, but definitely a good one. But yeah, you could be our serial killer guy, our serial killer reporter, our serial killer reporter. we have
Works for me.
we have a Bigfoot guy. No, we have a lot of those, but
I think I've been called people serial killer guy in the past, so it works.
But what about some of the art in the back? Is that really his art or other stuff? What's the skull back there and stuff?
That is an actual skull.
David Warner.
I wanted one. So
Who, Jay?
David Warner plays Jack the Ripper in Time After Time with the guy who
He
played.
keeps me company when I write. So
What is that? Whose skull is it?
I actually got it from a dentist's office, and I had it in an office for years, and I managed to fleece it from him, and now the skull and I are buddies. But
Nice.
yeah, the other paintings, they are John Wayne Gacy, actual John Wayne Gacy paintings.
Oh wow!
I like to bring them to class. It's interesting to have that handful of people in class that haven't said a word for 4 weeks, and then I bring in Pogo the Clown. I'll bring in one of these Hi-Ho series.
He did Snow White and Snow White. Wow.
Right. And like this one, if you can see it, I mean, this one, they're all coming out of a mine. And John Wayne Gacy liked to send messages in a lot of his paintings. And this one, if you look at it, you're looking at little boys coming out of what is essentially the crawl space with digging tools. And it's kind of a fascinating painting. And the kids, when they see it, they just fall out of their chairs and take photos and send it to their parents. Have a great time with it. So,
I don't have anything quite that fascinating on my wall, but I do have an original Doomsday J. Ross on right there. And then there's another original Doomsday J. Ross that I painted over there. But
I don't have any of those.
Yeah, I hope the guy that don't say anything that I'm a serial killer too.
What's the Psycho one in there? Looks like a Godzilla or something up there. I don't know if it's Godzilla, but there's one on the other side of you up there, Psycho, and then to the right of it.
I'll show you that. You might find it interesting. This is actually this is the movie poster for Psycho. That was like a lobby card. But next to it, if you see it right here, that's Alfred Hitchcock's autograph.
Oh, cool.
It's like, he used to draw his little caricature of his face. In 1966, now I'm dating myself. I hate to do that. But I went to New York City with my mother, and we went and saw a taping of some Mike Douglas show or something like that. And Alfred Hitchcock was actually there. And we got to talk to people after the show. And my mom says, ask him for an autograph. And I'm like, he scares me. But she said, just go do that. And Alfred Hitchcock literally signed that autograph for me.
Cool. Well, I'm going to age even further because I was born in 1966. So
yeah, there you go. You're just a kid.
Yeah.
What's the smaller one up there that looks like a fire or Godzilla or something? I'm looking at one right there. The
one that was next to Psycho.
The one that was next to Psycho to the right. Yeah. And that's the last one.
Have you ever heard of Jeff Gaither? This is an individual who actually did some artwork with Big Daddy Ross.
Okay, the art looks familiar.
Yeah, and
I've seen that before.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen his art around. His art's all over, like true crime community. He's a brilliant artist. Cool. This is one of his posters that he gave to me as a gift, and I framed it.
Awesome.
He did amazing work. You got to have him on. He's a super guy.
Yeah,
his artwork kind of reminds me of the guy that did the artwork for Hunter Thompson's books. Kind of weirded out, trippy face things.
What's the Death Row art show? Is that actually Gacy's clown picture of that, or is it just like a poster or something?
This was one. this was a poster that they used when they were putting on a show for Gacy's Art in the Seattle area. With
Cool.
Rick Stanton and his partner Tobias Allen. They put together an art show, and that's one of the posters that they use to advertise it.
That's awesome. Well, we got about 4 minutes. What's some websites? Do you have a website you want to give out? Where's the best place to go to get the book?
My website is www.killerinsightsllc.com. Or if somebody wants to send me an email, I'm at killerinsights@gmail.com. And because some people like to have them signed, or so either way, if they contact me, and I can send them a book or a signed book, and I will do that promptly when somebody wants one.
That was awesome. I appreciate it. We enjoyed it, and we just want to learn about it. It's a creepy subject that I'm always like, yeah, but I'll do it. But
It's creepy, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
but you got to be aware of it because they're out there, and you need to be aware of it. There are people out there that do that for sure.
Well, beyond some of the sensualization people make out of it is, it's historical and it's important to study. I think it's a matter that needs to be studied, and people need to know about it for sure.
Yeah, one way to avoid it in the future, for sure, it needs to be studied.
Right.
I don't know if you remember. I don't know when it was. The 90s? Was it the 90s? So when they had like the trading cards with all the serial killers on it.
Wait, hang on.
He's got some.
Museum.
Ask and you shall receive.
Nice.
That would be these.
Yes.
That's the Gacy one there at the top, and Richard's back.
I see it. Yeah.
Creepy.
Berkowitz. Yeah, I bring these in as, again, show the kids in class. They don't believe me. I'm like, they used to have Michael Jordan cards, and now they had John Wayne Gacy.
You really sometime got to watch Dexter if you get a chance. In the last, the newest episodes, Peter Dinklage collects serial killer memorabilia and brings serial killers together, and then a lot of drama happens. But they has not the real items from killers.
Right.
It gets crazy, but the positive, at least if it affects someone, they'll hopefully kill an evil serial killer, not an innocent person. So at least there's a moral, religious ethic there, like the Punisher. But we appreciate a great show, and thanks to Eric who helped. I saw your book and snagged you off his page. He doesn't care. He's glad. I told him, but
Eric's a good guy.
Yeah, he's great. He's coming back in October, and we're definitely going to get you back sometime. We've really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. You guys take care.
Steve.
Have a good weekend. Take care, man. All right, bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. You listen to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. That was a great show. Just so many levels of discussion.
Yeah, even though Gabe called me a jerk for throwing his statement up there, but you're welcome, Gabe.
We were talking about, no, that was just a joke about Andy being paranoid that everyone works for Epstein, and that's all. Gabe saw him acting like that on his page, and he got in a fight with Gabe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Gabe was defending my honor. So God bless you, Gabe. God bless you, Jamie. Yeah. God bless you all. But what a great show. And keep it weird, baby. That's right. Thank you, Heidi. And thanks for the work that you do. And thanks, everybody. Hopefully I don't go to the big house Monday. Keep me in your prayers. I'm sure I'll be fine, hopefully, but if you don't see me, then I'm in the big house for first offense misdemeanor. All right. Good night, everybody. Did I end this yet? No.
No, we're still rolling.
Good night.